The Grand Meridian Hotel stood like a beacon of quiet power against the Seattle skyline. Its marble facade caught the afternoon light, gleaming with the kind of confidence that didn't need to shout. Crystal chandeliers visible through the towering windows promised a world of luxury that most people only ever saw in movies or magazines. I had driven past this building hundreds of times over the years, watching it transform from a tired, aging property into one of the most sought-after venues on the entire West Coast. But today was different. Today, I wasn't just driving past. Today, I walked through those heavy revolving doors wearing a simple navy dress I had picked up at a department store sale 4 years ago. My shoes were comfortable flats, practical for what I knew would be a long day. My hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense bun. I carried no designer handbag, wore no expensive jewelry. To anyone watching, I looked exactly like what my family had always believed me to be, the struggling older sister, the one who had never quite figured out how to succeed, the one they whispered about at holidays when they thought I couldn't hear. Before we dive into today's story, if you enjoy tales of family drama, hidden success, and satisfying comebacks, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. We post new stories every week, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Go ahead and click subscribe. I'll wait right here. All right, let's get back to it. The lobby was already buzzing with wedding preparations. White roses cascaded from every surface, their sweet, heavy fragrance mixing with the subtle, expensive notes of the hotel's signature scent. A string quartet rehearsed a classical piece near the grand staircase, their music floating through the air like honey. Staff members in crisp, immaculate uniforms moved with practiced efficiency, adjusting flower arrangements, polishing already spotless surfaces, and speaking into discreet headsets. I recognized several relatives milling about near the entrance. Their designer outfits and loud, carrying voices marked them as members of the Henderson wedding party. My mother's side of the family had always been particular about appearances. Success was measured in square footage, car brands, and vacation destinations that could be dropped casually into dinner party conversation. Eleanor, my cousin Patricia, spotted me first. Her eyebrows rose so high they nearly disappeared into her professionally highlighted hairline. Her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice dripping with the kind of false concern that was really just an invitation for gossip. Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the lobby noise like a knife through silk. Well, well, well. Look who's trying to crash the wedding." My younger sister, Victoria, descended the grand staircase in a cloud of white organza. Her wedding dress rustled with each dramatic step she took. She had always known how to make an entrance, even as a child. Behind her trailed her maid of honor, our cousin Stephanie, and 3 bridesmaids I vaguely recognized from Victoria's sorority days. They moved like a small, perfectly dressed army. "She can't even afford a room here," Victoria continued, her voice carrying across the lobby with practiced projection. "She didn't need a microphone." Her words landed like tiny daggers. I specifically didn't send her an invitation for a reason. Several reasons, actually. The relatives nearby gathered closer, sensing the kind of family drama that would fuel gossip for months. My Aunt Margaret emerged from the hotel restaurant, her husband Gerald in tow. My mother appeared from the elevator bank, her face arranged in that particular expression of disappointed resignation she had perfected over decades of looking at me. "Victoria, darling, don't let her ruin your special day," my mother said, placing a manicured hand on my sister's arm. She didn't look at me. She never really looked at me. "Security can handle this sort of thing." "Already on it," Victoria said, snapping her fingers toward the concierge desk like she was summoning a waiter. "Can someone please remove this woman? She's not on the guest list. She's not on any list. She doesn't belong here." A security guard began making his way across the lobby, his expression professionally neutral. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the hotel staff had paused their preparations to watch the unfolding scene. "I told you she would try something like this," Aunt Margaret said, shaking her head with theatrical dismay. She's always been jealous of Victoria's success. Always. Even when they were little girls. I stood quietly in the center of the lobby, hands clasped in front of me, watching my family arrange themselves into a familiar formation. Victoria at the center, radiating righteous indignation. My mother flanking her right side, providing maternal support and silent endorsement. Aunt Margaret and Uncle Gerald anchoring the left, ready to provide backup commentary and disapproving sighs. Cousins and bridesmaids filling in the gaps, a chorus of disapproval and whispered judgments. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" Victoria hissed, stepping closer to me. Her perfume was overwhelming this close. "This is the Grand Meridian, the most exclusive hotel in Seattle. My wedding is going to be featured in Seattle Magazine, and you show up looking like that." She gestured at my simple dress with obvious, theatrical disdain. "I worked for 3 years to book this venue," she continued, her voice rising. 3 years on a waiting list. 3 years of begging and networking and making phone calls. And you think you can just walk in off the street like you belong here? "Victoria, I started." "Don't." She held up her hand, palm out. The massive diamond on her engagement ring caught the chandelier light and threw tiny rainbows across the marble floor. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You weren't invited. You've never supported my relationship with Marcus. You didn't come to my engagement party, my bridal shower, or my bachelorette weekend in Cabo." "I wasn't invited to any of those either," I said quietly. My voice was calm. I had practiced this calm for years. "Because you would have brought down the whole atmosphere." Victoria's voice rose another octave. People near the front entrance turned to look. "Do you know how hard it is to explain to people that my older sister lives in some tiny, depressing apartment and works some mysterious job that she can never actually explain? It's humiliating. Do you have any idea what it's like to have people ask about you?" My mother stepped forward, placing herself between us like a referee. "Eleanor, please. Just go. Don't make a scene. You're only making things worse for yourself." "I'm not the one making a scene," I pointed out. It was true. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't moved from my spot. "See?" Aunt Margaret chimed in, pointing a finger at me. "She always has to have the last word. Just like her father. That man could never just let things go. Always had to be right." The mention of my father sent a familiar ripple through the group. He had passed away 8 years ago, leaving behind a complicated legacy that my mother's family had never fully accepted or even tried to understand. They had never approved of him. He was a quiet man who preferred books to business deals, who had worked in real estate development without ever achieving the flashy, obvious success they valued. They called him a dreamer. They called him a failure behind his back. I heard those whispers. "Mom." The security guard had reached our group. His hand hovered near the radio on his belt. His name tag said Officer Matthews. "I'm going to need to ask you to leave the premises." "Ma'am." "On whose authority?" I asked calmly. "On mine," Victoria snapped. "I'm the bride. This is my wedding venue and you are trespassing. I want her gone. Now." Officer Matthews looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Victoria, then at me, then back at Victoria. "Ma'am, if you're not a registered guest or on the event list." "She's definitely not on any list," my mother confirmed. She pulled out her phone, probably to text someone about the drama. "Please escort her out. Preferably through a back entrance. We don't need photographs of this circulating." I remained where I stood, watching the scene unfold with the strange detachment that comes from having experienced similar moments throughout my entire life. The family closing ranks. The automatic assumption of my failure. The complete, unwavering certainty that I couldn't possibly belong in any space they occupied. It was a familiar feeling, like an old coat that didn't fit but that I couldn't throw away. "You know what the saddest part is?" Victoria said, turning to address her bridesmaids as much as me. "I actually used to look up to her. When we were kids, Eleanor was the smart one. Everyone said she would do great things. Teachers loved her. Relatives praised her." She laughed, a sharp sound without any warmth. "And look how that turned out. 34 years old. No husband. No career anyone can identify. Probably still driving that ancient car Dad left her." "The Honda still runs fine," I said. "It's paid off. It's reliable." "The Honda," Victoria repeated, rolling her eyes dramatically. Meanwhile, Marcus and I just ordered matching Teslas. "But sure, Eleanor, tell me more about your reliable Honda and your tiny apartment and your mysterious job that doesn't exist." The bridesmaids giggled on cue. Aunt Margaret nodded approvingly at Victoria's wit. My mother studied the ceiling as if hoping to find divine intervention hidden among the crystal chandeliers. "Mrs. Henderson?" A young woman in a hotel uniform approached my mother hesitantly. She clutched a tablet to her chest. "The florist is asking about the additional arrangements for the reception. They need a decision on the upgrade. Should I tell them to proceed?" "Yes, yes," my mother said, waving her hand dismissively. "Whatever Victoria wants. This is her day. She deserves the absolute best." "The upgrade is another $12,000, the staff member said carefully, her eyes wide. Did I stutter? My mother pulled a credit card out of her designer handbag with a flourish. "Victoria deserves the best. Unlike some people, she's actually made something of her life. She's successful. She's marrying well. She's given me grandchildren to be proud of." The transaction completed, my mother tucked her card back into her wallet and turned back to the security situation at hand. "Why is she still here?" I thought I asked for discretion. "Ma'am, I need to check with my manager before Officer Matthews started." "Your manager?" Victoria interrupted. "Fine. Get your manager. Get the hotel owner for all I care. Get the mayor of Seattle. Anyone who can remove my sister from my wedding venue. I don't care who it takes." "Actually," I said, speaking for the first time in several minutes, "I think the manager is already on his way." Every head in our group turned toward the elevator bank. A distinguished man in an impeccable charcoal suit was indeed making his way across the lobby. Jonathan Wright had been the general manager of the Grand Meridian for the past 4 years. He was excellent at his job, professional, discreet, and completely dedicated to maintaining the hotel's reputation for exceptional service. He walked with purpose, his eyes scanning the scene. "What is happening here?" Jonathan asked, taking in the scene with a practiced, assessing eye. "Is there a problem with the Henderson wedding preparations?" "Yes," Victoria said, stepping forward with the confidence of a woman who had never been denied anything in her entire privileged life. "This woman," she gestured at me with obvious distaste, "has shown up uninvited and is refusing to leave. She's my sister, unfortunately, but she's absolutely not welcome at my wedding. I need her removed immediately. My mother has already spent a fortune here. I expect better service than this." Jonathan's expression remained professionally neutral as he turned to look at me. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Respect. A question, perhaps, or a request for guidance. "Miss Anderson," he said carefully, his voice low and respectful. "How would you like us to handle your family's reservations?" The lobby went absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the marble floor. Victoria's mouth opened and closed several times without producing any sound. My mother's credit card, which she had been tucking back into her wallet, slipped from her fingers and clattered loudly to the floor. Aunt Margaret grabbed Uncle Gerald's arm so tightly that he winced in pain. "I'm sorry," Victoria finally managed. Her voice was a strange, strangled whisper. "What did you just call her?" Jonathan looked genuinely confused by the question. He glanced at me, then back at Victoria, then at the rest of the group. "Miss Anderson. Ms. Eleanor Anderson." He gestured toward me with obvious, unmistakable respect. "The owner of this hotel?" "The owner," my mother repeated flatly. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and impossible. "That's impossible," Aunt Margaret declared. Her face had gone pale. "Eleanor doesn't own anything. She lives in a tiny apartment in Capitol Hill. She drives a Honda. She works some online job that no one understands." "I do live in Capitol Hill," I confirmed. My voice was steady. "And I do drive a Honda. It was my father's car, and it has significant sentimental value. I'm not ashamed of either of those things." "But you also own this hotel," Jonathan added, still looking confused by the apparent controversy. He looked at my family like they had just claimed the sky was green. "You've owned the Grand Meridian for the past 4 years, ever since you completed the acquisition and the complete renovation. That was a $140 million project, if I recall correctly, along with the other 7 properties in the Anderson Hospitality portfolio. 9 properties, I corrected gently. We closed on the San Francisco location last month, and we finalized the deal for a boutique hotel in Austin 3 weeks ago. I haven't updated the internal documents yet. 9 properties, Jonathan repeated, nodding with admiration. Of course. My apologies, Ms. Anderson. Congratulations on those acquisitions, by the way. The entire team is very excited about the expansion. We've been following the news closely. Victoria looked like she might actually faint. One of her bridesmaids had the presence of mind to grab a chair from the nearby seating area and push it toward her. My sister sank into it, her wedding dress billowing around her like a deflating cloud of expensive fabric. This is a joke, she said. Her voice was hollow. This has to be a joke. Eleanor, if you hired some actor to pretend to be a hotel manager, I swear. Miss Henderson, Jonathan interrupted, his tone cooling noticeably. Ice entered his voice. I can assure you that I am the actual general manager of this hotel. I have been for 4 years. And Ms. Anderson is very much the actual owner. She personally oversaw the entire renovation. She approved every design decision, every staffing hire, every operational policy. The Grand Meridian exists in its current form because of her vision, her capital, and her commitment to excellence. I report directly to her. Her word is final here. But how? My mother had finally found her voice. It cracked on the word. Where would Eleanor get the money to buy a hotel? Her father left her nothing. Just that stupid car and some boxes of old papers and journals. We had the will read. We all saw it. Actually, I said, reaching into my practical handbag. Dad left me quite a bit more than that. I pulled out a worn leather journal, its cover soft and creased from years of use. My father's handwriting covered every page. I held it up so they could see. He left me his real estate portfolio. 27 properties that he had quietly acquired over 30 years of careful, patient investment. Properties that he bought, renovated, managed, and grew without ever telling anyone in this family because he knew exactly how you would react. He knew you would mock him. He knew you would dismiss him. He knew you would try to tear it all apart for quick cash. That's impossible, Aunt Margaret insisted, but her voice had lost its certainty. Richard was a failure. He never accomplished anything of value. He was always tinkering with buildings nobody wanted. Richard was private, I corrected. My voice was firm but not angry. There's a difference between privacy and failure. He didn't need to talk about his success at dinner parties. He didn't need to impress anyone with his car or his vacation destinations or his country club memberships. He just quietly, steadily built something real. Something lasting. Something meaningful. And when he passed away, he left it all to me with very specific instructions. I opened the journal to a random page and held it up. He wrote it all down. Every property. Every investment strategy. Every hard lesson he learned along the way. Every bit of advice he wanted me to remember. He spent the last year of his life teaching me how to manage the portfolio, how to grow it responsibly, how to identify opportunities that others overlooked because of their own assumptions. Why you? Victoria demanded, some of her characteristic fire returning. Tears were streaming down her face now, ruining her expensive makeup. Why not Mom? Why not me? I'm his daughter too. I deserve to know. Because you would have sold everything and spent the money on things that don't last, I said simply. My voice was gentle but honest. His words, not mine. They're in the journal. He wrote that you have a good heart, Victoria, but you chase approval. You chase status. You chase things that glitter but don't hold weight. He wanted the portfolio to grow, to provide for future generations, to create opportunities for people who work hard and dream big. He didn't want it turned into handbags and vacation homes and matching Teslas. My mother looked stricken. Her face crumpled. Richard said that? About me. About the family in general, I said, and I meant it as kindly as I possibly could. He loved you, Mom. He loved all of us. But he also saw clearly how this family values appearance over substance. He saw how you dismissed him. He saw how you encouraged Victoria to chase wealth instead of wisdom. He wanted to protect his legacy from that. He wanted to protect me from that. Jonathan cleared his throat diplomatically. Ms. Anderson, would you like me to clear the lobby? Give you some privacy with your family? I can have the staff redirect guests to the garden area for a few minutes. I considered this. That won't be necessary, Jonathan. But I would like to see the event coordinator, please, and someone from accounting. We need to review some numbers. Of course. Jonathan pulled out his phone and sent a quick message. They'll be here momentarily. Is there anything else you need? A glass of water? Somewhere to sit? I'm fine, thank you. Victoria suddenly stood up from her chair, her face cycling through several emotions before settling on something that looked almost like desperate hope. Eleanor. Ellie. You're not actually going to cancel my wedding, are you? Please tell me you're not going to cancel my wedding. I know I said some terrible things. I know I've been awful to you for years. But it's my wedding day. You wouldn't ruin my wedding day. You're not that cruel. I'm not going to cancel your wedding, I said. The relief that washed over Victoria's face was almost painful to watch. Her shoulders sagged. She let out a shaky breath. Oh, thank God. Thank you, Eleanor. I knew you wouldn't. I mean, I know we haven't always been close, but we're still sisters and… I'm not going to cancel your wedding, I repeated, cutting her off gently. I'm going to attend your wedding. As I originally intended when I drove here this afternoon. As I've been planning to do for months. But I didn't invite you, Victoria said, confusion replacing relief. I threw the invitation away. I told Mom not to send you one. I didn't want you here. No, you didn't. But I wanted to come anyway. I wanted to watch my little sister get married. I wanted to see you happy. I wanted to be part of your special day, even if I had to stand in the back and slip out before the reception. Even if no one knew I was there. Victoria's eyes filled with fresh tears. Genuine tears this time, not the performative kind she had mastered in high school drama club. Why? After everything I've said about you? After how I've treated you for years? After all the times I made fun of you behind your back? Why would you still want to come? Because you're my sister, I said simply. Because I remember when you used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, because you were scared of the lightning. Because I remember teaching you to ride a bike in the park and how you cried when you fell but got right back on. Because despite everything, despite all the years of hurt and distance and disappointment, I still love you. That's what family is supposed to do. The event coordinator arrived with a tablet, followed by a woman from accounting with a laptop. They positioned themselves near Jonathan, awaiting instructions. The Henderson wedding, I said. I'd like to see the complete billing details, please. Every charge. Every deposit. Every pending upgrade. The accountant pulled up the information, turning her screen so I could see. The total was staggering. Well into 6 figures for the venue, the catering, the flowers, the music, the photography, the videography, and the various premium upgrades my mother had been authorizing all week without apparently checking the running total. Who is responsible for final payment? I asked. The initial deposit was paid by a Mr. Marcus Wellington, the accountant said. The groom. Approximately $15,000. But subsequent charges have been going to a credit card belonging to Mrs. Patricia Henderson. She glanced at my mother. The bride's mother. How much has my mother paid so far? The accountant checked the records, scrolling through pages of charges. Approximately $93,000, Ms. Anderson. That includes the flower upgrade from earlier today and several other premium additions. The bar package upgrade. The extended photography package. The additional musicians for the reception. I turned to my mother, who had gone very pale. Her hands were shaking slightly. Mom, can you actually afford this? My mother's silence was answer enough. She looked down at her expensive shoes. Aunt Margaret stepped in with practiced defensiveness. Your mother wanted to give Victoria the wedding she deserves, Aunt Margaret said, her chin lifted. Family takes care of family. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. Family takes care of family, I repeated slowly. Interesting philosophy. I'll remember that. I turned back to the accountant. Transfer all current and future charges for the Henderson wedding to my personal account. Every single expense. Past, present, and anything that comes up between now and the end of the reception. The rehearsal dinner tonight. The brunch tomorrow. Everything. The accountant's fingers flew across her keyboard. Done, Ms. Anderson. I've also noted your account as the primary billing source for any incidentals or upgrades requested by the wedding party or their guests. My mother made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Victoria stared at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Something approaching genuine gratitude mixed with profound, undeniable shame. You don't have to do that, Victoria whispered. Eleanor, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know I don't have to, I said. I want to. Consider it my wedding gift. Consider it a down payment on a better relationship going forward. Eleanor. My mother stepped forward, reaching for my hand with trembling fingers. I don't know what to say. I've been so terrible to you. We all have. You don't have to say anything right now, I said, squeezing her hand gently. But I do have some conditions. The weariness returned to everyone's faces. Of course there would be conditions. In this family, nothing came without strings attached. I could see them bracing themselves. First, I said, holding up one finger. I want an actual invitation to the wedding. Not just permission to attend. An invitation with my name on it. Eleanor Anderson, sister of the bride. Written in calligraphy. Hand-delivered. Victoria nodded quickly. Done. Of course. You should have been invited from the beginning. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Second, I want a seat at the family table during the reception. Not in the back. Not at the overflow table with distant cousins I've never met. At the main table. Where I belong. Where I've always belonged. Yes, my mother said immediately. Absolutely. I'll make sure of it myself. Third, I want us to start having honest conversations about Dad. About his legacy. About his life. About why this family decided I was a failure without ever actually asking what I was doing with my days. I want us to stop pretending he was unimportant. This condition met with more hesitation. Aunt Margaret shifted uncomfortably. Uncle Gerald suddenly found the chandelier absolutely fascinating. My mother looked down at her shoes again. I spent 8 years executing my father's vision, I continued, looking around at each of them. 8 years growing his portfolio, hiring staff, creating jobs, building something real and lasting. 8 years of 14-hour days and sleepless nights. And not once did anyone in this family ask me how I was doing. Not once did anyone wonder if maybe, just maybe, I might be okay. Not one phone call. Not one text message. We assumed, my mother started, then stopped. You assumed I was failing because I didn't look like I was succeeding. Because I didn't drive the right car or wear the right clothes or go to the right parties. You measured me by your standards and found me wanting without ever considering that. I might have different standards entirely. My father taught me that success isn't about what people see. It's about what you build when no one is watching. Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, probably ruining her professional makeup beyond repair. You're right. You're absolutely right about all of it. I was so awful to you. We all were. And you didn't deserve any of it. No, I agreed. I didn't. But I'm not doing this for an apology. I'm doing this because I want things to be different going forward. I want to actually have a family. Not just relatives who tolerate me when they have to, who whisper about me behind my back. I want real relationships. I want Sunday dinners and holiday arguments and someone to call when I've had a bad day. I want to belong. Jonathan stepped forward, sensing that the most dramatic moments had passed. Ms. Anderson, would you like me to arrange for your usual suite? The penthouse is available. It has a beautiful view of the Sound. I considered the offer. Actually, I think I'll take a standard room tonight. Something comfortable but not extravagant. I'm here for my sister's wedding, not to make a statement. Not to prove anything. Of course, Jonathan said, nodding to a staff member who hurried off to arrange the accommodations. Wait, Aunt Margaret said, seemingly unable to contain herself any longer. You said 9 properties. 9 hotels. Like this one? You own 9 hotels like the Grand Meridian. Not all like this one, I said. The Grand Meridian is the flagship. It's the largest and the most prestigious. The others vary. Boutique hotels in historic buildings. A resort property in Oregon. A small luxury inn in Napa Valley. A business hotel in downtown Chicago. Each one has its own character, its own personality. And you run all of them? Uncle Gerald asked, genuine curiosity breaking through his usual reserve for the first time in his life. I oversee them. I have excellent managers at each property, people like Jonathan here, who handle the day-to-day operations. My job is vision, strategy, long-term planning, and making sure we stay true to my father's principles. What principles? Victoria asked softly. Quality over flash. Sustainability over waste. Treating employees like family. Giving guests an experience they'll remember, not just a room to sleep in. I smiled, thinking of all the hours I had spent with my father's journal, absorbing his philosophy, making it my own. Dad believed that success should be measured by what you create, not what you consume. He built his portfolio quietly because he didn't want the recognition. He wanted the results. He wanted to leave something behind that would outlast him. My mother sank into a nearby chair, looking suddenly older than her 62 years. I never knew any of this. All those years married to him, and I never knew who he really was. He tried to tell you, I said gently. He tried so many times. But you didn't want to hear it. You wanted him to be someone he wasn't. Someone who cared about the same things you cared about. Someone who wanted the same shiny, obvious success. And when he couldn't be that person, you stopped listening. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a statement of fact. My mother nodded slowly, accepting the truth of it. The rest of the day unfolded like a dream. I got ready in my standard room, then walked to the ceremony. Victoria was radiant walking down the aisle. Marcus cried when he saw her. The reception was joyful and loud. I sat at the family table. People asked me questions. I answered them honestly. By the end of the night, my mother hugged me and didn't let go for a long time. Victoria apologized again, and I told her it was okay, and for the first time, I actually believed it might be. Sometimes the people who should believe in you the most are the last ones to see your worth. But that doesn't mean your worth isn't real. Keep building. Keep growing. Keep becoming who you're meant to be. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more tales of hidden success and family drama. We release new stories every single week. Thanks for watching.